Imagine a road, a single continuous line of asphalt that stretches from the frozen tundra of Alaska all the way down to the tip of Argentina. It is the Pan American Highway, the longest motorable road in the world. According to the Guinness Book of World Records, it is 19,000 miles of unbroken connectivity. It is a beautiful idea. It suggests that if you have enough gas and enough time, you can drive from the top of the world to the bottom without ever leaving your car. Except that is a lie. Because right there, at the border between Central and South America, the road just stops. This is the Darien Gap. It is roughly 100 kilometers, about 60 miles of roadless jungle that separates Panama from Colombia. It is the only break in the global grid of the Americas. For 100 years, engineers, presidents, and billionaires have tried to pave this small stretch of land. They have all failed. If you look at a map, it doesn't make sense. We've built tunnels under the Swiss Alps. We've built bridges that span nearly 100 miles over the ocean in China. We have built railways through the permafrost of Siberia. So why can't we pave 60 miles of dirt? The answer is terrifying, because this isn't just a forest, it's a biological fortress. It is a place so hostile to human life that it once destroyed an entire European empire. It's a blind spot on the map where the laws of nations do not apply. And the reason we haven't fixed it isn't because we can't, it's because we chose not to. To understand why this gap is still here in the 21st century, you have to go back to the 17th century. Most people know that Spain, England, and France colonized the Americas, but almost nobody talks about Scotland. In the late 1690s, the Kingdom of Scotland was an independent nation, but it was struggling economically. They needed a win. They needed an empire. So they looked at a map of the world and saw something incredible. They saw the Isthmus of Panama, specifically the Darien region. The Scottish leaders realized that this narrow strip of land was the key to the world. If they could control it, they could control trade between the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. They called it the Door of the Seas. So Scotland went all in, and I mean all in. The country raised roughly 20% of its entire national wealth to fund the Darien scheme. It was a massive gamble. Thousands of colonists set sail to build New Caledonia. They arrived in the Darien Gap in 1698. They planted their flag, they started to build a fort, and then the jungle woke up. They weren't prepared for the mosquitoes. Malaria and yellow fever swept through the camps like wildfire. The soil was too swampy to grow European crops. The water turned bad. Spanish forces blockaded them from the sea, but they didn't even need to attack. The land was doing the killing for them. Within a year, the colony collapsed. The survivors fled. The financial loss was so catastrophic that it bankrupted the Scottish nation. It was so bad that a few years later, Scotland had to sign the Act of Union, effectively merging with England to survive economically. Think about that. This specific patch of jungle is so difficult to conquer that it literally erased a country's independence. The jungle didn't just stop a road, it erased an empire. At Borderline History, we map the stories that others miss. If you want to see the invisible lines that shape our world, please subscribe and like the video right now. It helps us keep the lights on and the maps rendering. Now, what exactly killed them, and why does it still kill people today? If you were to try and walk across the Darien today, you wouldn't just be walking through a forest, you would be fighting the earth itself. This isn't a flat jungle like the Amazon. It's a chaotic, geological nightmare. It's a mix of steep mountain ridges that rise nearly 2,000 meters into the air, and low-lying swamps that are so deep They can swallow a jeep whole. On the Colombian side, you have the Atrato Swamp. This is a massive, waterlogged labyrinth, roughly 80 kilometers wide. It isn't just mud, it's a floating ecosystem of vegetation. To build a road here, you wouldn't just need to pour concrete, you would need to drain a wetland the size of a city or build a causeway that floats. On the Panamanian side, you have the mountains. The Serranía del Darien Range acts as a jagged wall. The slopes are incredibly steep, covered in slick, clay-like mud that becomes like grease when it rains. And it always rains. The Darien is one of the wettest places on the planet. We're talking about regions that receive up to 3 meters, 10 feet of rain a year. It rains almost every single day. The rivers here are violent. They can rise 10 feet in an hour during a flash flood, turning dry creek beds into raging torrents that wipe out bridges, trails, and people. In 1960, a famous expedition called the Trans-Darien Expedition tried to cross it using Land Rovers. They were driving the most capable off-road vehicles in the world. It took them 136 days to drive, roughly 100 kilometers. That is the average speed of 200 meters per hour. They spent more time winching their cars up cliffs than they did driving. At one point, the vegetation was so thick they were only moving a few feet a day. Logistically, it is a nightmare. But humans are stubborn. We have conquered nightmares before. We have built roads in the Arctic. We have built roads in the Sahara. So geography alone doesn't explain why the Darien is still empty. To find the real reason, we have to look at an invisible enemy. By the 1970s, technology had improved. The United States decided enough is enough. President Richard Nixon wanted the Pan American Highway finished. It was supposed to be the ultimate symbol of hemispheric unity, a physical link connecting North and South America. The U.S. government was ready to back the project financially. The plan was set. The engineering was ready. But then, agricultural officials raised a red flag that had nothing to do with trees and everything to do with cows: foot and mouth disease. This is a highly contagious virus that affects cattle, pigs, and sheep. In the 1970s, it was rampant in South America, but North America was clean. If the virus reached the U.S., it would decimate the American beef and pork industries, costing billions of dollars. The U.S. Department of Agriculture realized something crucial. The Darien Gap wasn't just a missing road, it was a natural biological barrier. That wall of jungle was the only thing stopping infected South American cattle from walking north. The logic became cold but simple. If you build a road for cars, you build a road for disease. Under pressure from the cattle lobby, and joined by environmentalists who feared the destruction of the virgin rainforest, the U.S. pulled its support. In the late 70s and early 80s, the strategy shifted from conquer to preserve. Panama established the Darien National Park, and in 1981, UNESCO declared it a World Heritage Site. The official story became one of conservation. We were saving the trees. We were protecting the indigenous Emberá, Hunan, and Guna peoples who have lived there for centuries. But in reality, we were building a wall. We created a deliberate buffer zone. We stopped the road to save the cows. But when a state leaves a vacuum, power doesn't disappear. It just changes hands. The Darien Gap is technically Panamanian and Colombian soil. If you look at a political map, there are borders. But on the ground, the real authority here has always been armed groups. For decades, the Colombian side was a stronghold for FARC guerrillas. They used the dense canopy to hide from airstrikes. Today, the power has shifted to the Clan del Golfo, the Gulf Clan. They are one of the most powerful criminal organizations in South America. For them, the lack of a road is perfect. If you want to smuggle from Colombia to the U.S., You can't use a highway checkpoint. You need cover. You need a place where satellites can't see and police cars can't drive. The dense canopy of the Darien is the world's greatest camouflage. It creates a lawless border. The hidden trails become supply lines for weapons. But recently, the business model has changed. They have found a commodity that is even more profitable and far harder to stop: human beings. 10 years ago, crossing the Darien Gap, only a few thousand people attempted it per year. It was something you did only if you had absolutely no other choice. But look at the numbers now. In 2023 alone, over 500,000 people walked through this jungle. This isn't just a regional border anymore. It has become a global funnel. We are seeing people from Venezuela, Haiti, and Ecuador, but we are also seeing people from China, Afghanistan, Angola, and India. They fly to South America because visa rules there are often looser. Then they head north, and eventually everyone hits the bottleneck. Everyone hits the gap. It has become an industry. On the Colombian side, in towns like Nicoli, you can buy a jungle kit: boots, machetes, tents. But you don't just walk into the trees, you pay. Criminal groups control the entry points. They charge a tax for permission to cross. They give migrants colored wristbands, like you would get at a music festival or a resort, to prove they have paid. But once you step into the trees, the service ends. For the next 60 miles, there is no government. There is no 911. If you break your leg, you stay there. If you run out of water, you drink from the river, which is often contaminated. Migrants speak of a specific ridge called the Mountain of Death. It is a near vertical climb of slick mud where people abandon their luggage, their food, and sometimes, tragically, they have to leave behind the bodies of those who didn't make it. It is a humanitarian crisis hidden behind a wall of green. And it is happening there because there is no safe, legal way to cross this land. The Darien Gap is a paradox. We live in an era of hyper-connectivity. We can send a message to the other side of the world in milliseconds. We can track a package from a warehouse in China to a doorstep in New York. And yet, right there, in the middle of the Americas, the modern world simply gives up. We stopped the road to save the jungle. We stopped it to protect our livestock from disease. We stopped it to preserve indigenous cultures. These are all valid reasons. But in doing so, we created something else. We created a zone of silence where criminal empires flourish and hundreds of thousands of desperate people risk their lives in the mud. There are still politicians today who talk about closing the gap. They talk about finishing the Pan American Highway. They say it would bring trade and prosperity. But opponents say it would bring destruction. They say a road would be a dagger through the heart of one of the last wild places on Earth. It would bring loggers, cattle ranchers, and developers who would burn the forest down within a decade. So the gap remains. It is the only place on Earth where the map says stop, but history forces people to keep going. Thanks for watching Borderline History. If you think the geography we just discussed is messy, it's nothing compared to the Nile River crisis in Egypt. There is a straight line in the desert there that looks simple on a map, but it actually created the only livable piece of land in Egypt. Click the video on the screen right now to see how that happened. I'll see you there.